Now in other news, the United States has announced it will rejoin UNESCO almost 6 years after former President Donald Trump announced the U.S. withdrawal from the cultural body, citing financial considerations, the need for reform, and the organization's continuing anti-Israel bias. Axios on Sunday cited a State Department spokesperson as saying Washington contacted UNESCO privately last week to announce its decision to rejoin after eyeing rival China's growing influence in the agency. Jerusalem has indicated to Washington that it would not oppose its efforts to rejoin the organization. Israel also formally withdrew from UNESCO in 2019 after some 69 years after it had joined, citing the continued singling out of the Jewish state for criticism and condemnation. Israel was particularly angered by decisions that included recognizing the tomb of the patriarchs in the old city of Hebron in the West Bank as a Palestinian World Heritage Site in danger. Now, for more on this story, I'm joined in studio by correspondent Nicole Tzedek. Nicole, good to have you. First, talk to us about the significance of the U.S. joining UNESCO, of course, amid the growing influence of China.
Exactly. And so that is really what this boils down to. The Biden administration had said this is really a top foreign policy goal of theirs. In fact, even last April, Secretary of State Antony Blinken had talked about how not being a part of UNESCO has really been an absent and detrimental to the United States, even saying, quote, when we're not at the table shaping that conversation, and so actually helping to shape those norms and standards, well, someone else is. And that someone is probably China. So that is really what this all boils down to, trying to hopefully stop China's growing influence in the agency. And it really does come back to this power struggle, power play between the United States and China, especially on a worldwide view. When you have 193 different countries participating in UNESCO, the United States now wants a seat at this table. After their brief hiatus, now the Biden administration says they want a hand back on it, especially when it now comes to some of these more technical issues, artificial intelligence, education, a lot of things that China does have a pretty big play and pretty big hand in. Now the United States says it's beneficial for them to get back in UNESCO and have some bigger conversations when it comes to that table. I also want to put a significance as to exactly why this is happening right now, why they want it. It's all ahead of the November elections with the executive board. And so if the United States does become a member of UNESCO before November, they're really hoping to get a seat on that executive board so they can have even more influence in the organization.
Yes, so the U.S. understands, as it understood maybe here in the Middle East, that when it leaves a body or a region, there's never is a void. China, Russia, other rivals are always there to fill up that space. Let's speak about Israel, because Israel obviously withdrew from UNESCO itself. Israel was one of the main reasons why the U.S. initially withdrew as well. How does Israel see all of this, and where does this put Israel?
Well, as you said, just last year, Israel had said that if the United States does consider rejoining, they don't have a problem with it. And even the last government in Israel said that they were even potentially thinking of rejoining themselves. Now, that was the past government. We have a new government now, and that definitely goes against more of the current government's beliefs. And so I think what's going to be at play now is what exactly the current government does have to say about the United States' decision to rejoin. But also, if you look at it from a broader perspective, could this potentially help Israel in a sense by having a supposed ally like the United States, having possibly a seat on the executive board if they do make those elections in November? Will the United States have a bigger say then into UNESCO and possibly stop some of these anti-Israel, anti-Zionist measures that the UN has repeatedly passed in the past? It's no stranger for the UN and this UN-based organization to have some anti-Israel sentiments. And so could it be a benefit if the United States does rejoin and has a bigger stance to possibly push back on some of those anti-Israel sentiments?
Interesting to see how it all will play out and whether Israel itself would eventually decide to become part of that body again. Nicole Tzedek, thank you very much.